A father who built his entire life around a crown just handed it to his son, while still alive, still aware, and still able to hear the bells ring for someone else. The date is set. The ceremony is planned. But what happened behind those closed palace doors in the weeks before this announcement will change everything you thought you knew about this family. And it starts with 12 seconds of silence. The Prince of Wales and the Princess of Wales have just confirmed the official coronation date, and the announcement lasted less than 3 minutes. But honestly, every second of it shattered decades of expectation. The date is June 2nd, 2027, at Westminster Abbey. And what is already being called historic is not just the ceremony itself. It is everything that had to break and rebuild behind closed doors to make that 3-minute statement possible. When you actually look at what was said versus what happened in the weeks leading up to this, the timeline gets really complicated and surprisingly emotional. Because this is not a story about a son waiting to inherit a title. It is about a living father agreeing to hand over the crown while he is still very much aware of what that means. A family trying not to fracture under the weight of a transition that nobody ever really planned for. Before we get into the private confrontations, the sealed letters, and the moment that almost derailed the entire ceremony, hit subscribe and join us here at UK Dispatch so you do not miss what comes next. Standing side by side, the future king and his wife confirmed the date. The Prince of Wales tightened his hand around the lectern before saying June 2nd a second time. That small pause betrayed everything he refused to say out loud. The date falls 74 years after the late Queen's coronation, deliberately binding the new reign to the woman whose long service defined modern royalty. Westminster Abbey, the ancient church where British monarchs are crowned, would now become the place where son formally stepped beyond his father. The Princess of Wales watched him with pride. But sorrow moved beneath her calm expression. She understood that the crown would not simply change their titles. It would reshape their marriage, narrow their privacy, and place their 3 children beneath a harsher public light. The princess had spent weeks beside her husband during sealed meetings with the king, the Princess Royal, senior constitutional advisors, and the Archbishop of Canterbury, who traditionally conducts coronation ceremonies. When the cameras stopped and the room fell quiet, the Prince of Wales turned toward his wife and asked, almost too softly to hear, "Are you ready?" She reached for his hand and answered, "We have to be." He held her gaze, understanding that courage did not mean either of them felt unafraid. The king heard those same words from a private room at Clarence House. He lowered his glasses, stared at the silent screen, and said nothing. His formal decision to relinquish the throne had made the announcement possible. Yet hearing the date spoken publicly transformed a private agreement into irreversible history. Beside him rested a sealed coronation file, the official collection of plans governing the ceremony, succession, and the transfer of royal authority. The king finally opened it. One line had been crossed out in black ink, with a replacement date written beneath it by hand. June 2nd had not been the first choice. The original ceremony was planned for months later, until a confidential disagreement forced the Prince of Wales to demand an earlier transition. That dispute cut deeper than any advisor publicly understood. The nation had been given a date. But behind that announcement stood 4 people whose private sacrifices had made that moment possible, and whose loyalties were about to be tested. Behind every coronation stands a family forced to surrender something the public will never see. The future king must inherit while his father is still alive. The future queen must accept the crown while protecting children who are already watched by the world. The king must release the institution that defined his entire existence. And the queen consort must face a future in which her influence ends the instant another woman receives the crown. The Prince of Wales had prepared for kingship since childhood. But preparation had never included this. He had imagined the crown arriving through grief, not through a living father stepping aside while still able to hear the bells announcing his replacement. That difference mattered. It turned duty into guilt and victory into something dangerously close to betrayal. The Princess of Wales felt the same pressure in another form. She would become queen, the monarch's crown partner and the senior woman of the new reign. Yet she still had 3 children who needed protection from the machinery surrounding them. After the announcement, she entered her eldest son's room and found him reading public reactions on a tablet. She gently closed the screen and told him, "You are still allowed to be a child." The young heir looked at her and asked whether that would remain true after the coronation. She promised it would, even though she knew the crown had already begun changing his life. And that is where it gets really honest. Because she was not just comforting her son. She was making a promise she was not entirely sure she could keep. And that tension follows her through every decision that comes next. The king sat alone with the red boxes he had opened throughout his reign, the locked cases carrying official state papers requiring the sovereign's attention. He placed one hand on the final coronation briefing, then asked an aide to remove it. He believed stepping aside would protect the monarchy from uncertainty. But another fear tortured him. History might call his sacrifice a failure. The queen consort understood that fear because her own future was narrowing. At Clarence's house, she poured tea for her husband and asked whether June 2nd had truly been the Prince of Wales's choice. The king did not answer immediately. That silence told her enough. The date had emerged from pressure, not complete agreement. And she realized her influence would end the moment the Princess of Wales received the crown. The Princess Royal refused to let private pain become public damage. During a documented family consultation recorded by the private secretary, she warned her brother that visible hesitation could weaken both reigns. The king listened, but his expression hardened when she told him that dignity now depended upon his complete and open support for his son. The king acted that same night. He ordered constitutional advisors to prepare two plans: a regency, a temporary transfer of royal duties, and voluntary abdication, the permanent surrender of the throne. Meanwhile, the Princess of Wales carried another secret. A trusted palace custodian had given her a private letter written by the late queen, intended for the woman who would one day follow her as the monarchy's senior female figure. She had not opened it yet, and the Prince of Wales soon received a more immediate warning. The king would support the coronation, but only if one final condition was accepted. To understand why a father would place conditions on his own son's coronation, the story has to return to the private ceremony that transformed uncertainty into a point of no return. The path to June 2nd did not begin with a public announcement or a constitutional document. It began during a private service at St. George's Chapel, when the king missed a crucial ceremonial movement, and the Prince of Wales stepped forward without being instructed. For 12 silent seconds, father and son stood beneath the same vaulted ceiling while every senior royal understood the truth. The crown had already begun moving before anyone dared admit it. The king had fought for months to maintain the pace expected of a sovereign. He continued opening state papers, attending formal audiences, and appearing at ceremonies, even when exhaustion followed him back through palace doors. The Prince of Wales had quietly absorbed more of that burden, taking on additional briefings, investitures, diplomatic receptions, and constitutional consultations. Every task the prince accepted protected his father, but it also made the transfer of power feel more real. The breaking point came during a closed order of the Garter rehearsal at St. George's Chapel. The Ancient Order is Britain's highest and oldest order of chivalry, and its ceremony depends upon precise movement, timing, and rank. The king reached his appointed position, then stopped. He looked toward the wrong side of the chapel and failed to respond when the next movement began. The Prince of Wales stepped beside him, whispered the correct instruction, and completed the sequence. The Princess Royal immediately signaled for the musicians to continue, concealing the interruption before it could spread through the room. The king waited until they reached the vestry before turning on his son. The small private chamber used by clergy and ceremonial participants offered no protection from the anger in his voice. He accused the Prince of Wales of looking too ready to take control. The prince clenched his ceremonial gloves and answered that he had acted because his father looked frightened. That single word wounded the king more deeply than any public criticism ever could. The Princess of Wales found her husband alone afterward, still holding those gloves so tightly that the leather had folded across his palm. He admitted that helping the king had felt like betrayal, because every instinct told him to protect his father, while every duty demanded that he prepared to replace him. She reminded him that stepping forward had prevented humiliation. But the future king could not escape the guilt. The Princess Royal confronted the king later, through a documented private family consultation. She told her brother that the chapel incident was not humiliation. It was a warning. A controlled transition could preserve his dignity, while a sudden public crisis could destroy it. The king acted that night. He ordered advisors to prepare two plans, a regency and voluntary abdication. The original coronation date had been set for autumn 2027, but the Prince of Wales opposed the delay after receiving a confidential security and health assessment. The king finally accepted June 2nd. Yet he demanded that one disputed moment be removed from the ceremony. That demand would soon bring father and son into the same room, without advisors, cameras, or ceremonial protection. And neither man would leave unchanged. The confrontation began with no raised voices. The king sat at one end of a long table. The Prince of Wales sat at the other. Between them rested the Order of Service, the official document setting out each stage of the coronation ceremony. One paragraph had been crossed out in black ink. It concerned the moment the former sovereign would publicly pledge loyalty to the new king. The king called it unnecessary humiliation. The Prince of Wales called it the only gesture capable of ending months of dangerous speculation. Every aid was ordered from the private library. The king closed the door himself. He pointed to the crossed-out passage and said he would not kneel before his own child while millions watched. The Prince of Wales held his anger in check. He argued that the pledge was not designed to shame his father. It was meant to give the country absolute clarity. The nation needed to see that the outgoing sovereign accepted the new monarch without hesitation, because even one uncertain gesture could fuel rumors of division, resistance, or a crown transferred under pressure. The king pushed the document across the table and said, "You have prepared to receive it. You have never prepared to release it." His voice remained controlled, but the words carried the weight of years. His reign, however brief history might call it, had consumed his identity. Kneeling would reduce all of that to one image of surrender. The Prince of Wales stood so suddenly that his chair moved backward. He admitted that he had spent his entire life preparing for the death of a parent. He had never prepared for something more painful, replacing a father who remained alive, aware, and able to hear another man called king. "The crown does not feel like victory," the prince said. "It feels like taking something you still love." The confession changed the room. The king looked away. The fury in his face weakened, yet pride held him still. For nearly 2 hours, neither man surrendered the point. The Princess of Wales entered only after an aide told her the meeting had gone completely silent. She found the document between them and exhaustion on both faces. She refused to choose a side. Instead, she asked whether either man wanted the first lasting image of the new reign to be one of resentment between father and son. The king finally offered a compromise. He would make the pledge while standing, recognizing his son's sovereignty without appearing conquered. The future king accepted. Neither man smiled. But the danger between them eased. Then the king revealed a deeper threat through a documented note from the Lord Chamberlain's office. Someone inside the royal household had already contacted senior coronation organizers and attempted to change the program without authority. The argument between father and son had reached a resolution. But a greater battle was already unfolding through private offices, ceremonial committees, and through the one person who still believed she could reshape what came next. Royal power rarely announces itself with shouting. It moves through altered schedules, private telephone calls, revised guest lists, and names quietly removed from official documents. As the Prince and Princess of Wales prepared to inherit the crown, a second struggle unfolded behind closed doors. The Queen Consort had no authority to stop the coronation. But she still possessed relationships built across decades, and she intended to secure her husband's place before the new reign erased her influence entirely. The Coronation Planning Council controlled far more than ceremony. It decided the order of service, official roles, invitations, transport, security, and the public shape of the transition. The Prince of Wales would become sovereign once the abdication instrument, the legal document ending the king's reign, took effect. But until that moment, the king still held formal authority. That narrow gap created space for influence, and the Queen Consort used it. She privately contacted the Lord Chamberlain's office, the royal department responsible for major ceremonies and palace arrangements. Through a documented request sent to senior organizers, she asked for the king's role to be expanded and for a permanent ceremonial position to be created for him after abdication. She also proposed that she and the king enter Westminster Abbey immediately before the Prince and Princess of Wales, preserving the old hierarchy even as the crown changed hands. The Princess of Wales discovered the alteration while reviewing the latest procession papers. Her own arrival had been moved several minutes earlier without any explanation. She marked the page, closed the folder, and told her secretary not to alert the Prince of Wales yet. She wanted one private conversation before the dispute became a confrontation. The Queen Consort met with her privately and defended the request without apology. The Princess of Wales told her that the ceremony could honor the past without weakening the authority of the future. The Queen Consort answered that gratitude should never be confused with erasure. Her voice remained steady until the Princess of Wales asked what she truly feared. Then her composure broke. In a recorded private conversation preserved by the household secretary, the Queen Consort admitted that she feared becoming irrelevant the instant another woman was crowned. She had spent decades fighting for acceptance, and now she believed the new reign would reduce her to a footnote. The Princess of Wales listened, but refused to surrender the principle at stake. Personal fear could not be allowed to distort constitutional clarity. The Princess Royal intervened before the conflict could widen. She told the organizers to remove every unofficial revision and restore the approved procession. She warned that mixed signals would make the transition appear contested, damaging both the king and the future king. The king learned what had happened through the amended planning file. He felt betrayed, not because the Queen Consort had wanted to protect him, but because her actions made him look unwilling to release power. The final plan gave him a dignified entrance before the wider family, while leaving the Prince and Princess of Wales at the undisputed center of the ceremony. The procession was restored. Yet the cost of that correction became clear when the king returned home and confronted the woman who had tried to protect him without his permission. The public saw polished rehearsals, disciplined statements, and a monarchy moving forward with confidence. Inside Clarence's house, the atmosphere was far colder. The king returned from his briefing, placed the revised procession plan on a table, and asked the Queen Consort one question. "Why did you act in my name?" Her answer did not begin with politics. It began with fear. She admitted that she believed palace organizers were already treating the king like a retired figure before his reign had officially ended. Every altered schedule and shortened appearance had felt like a warning that he was being removed before he had chosen to leave. The revised procession plan had seemed like one final chance to protect his dignity. The king did not accept the defense, that he told her that the intervention had strengthened the exact suspicion he was working to destroy, that he would not release the throne peacefully. Then he removed his signet ring, the personal seal traditionally used as a symbol of royal identity and authority, and placed it beside the program. "Symbols become dangerous," he said, "when people value them more than trust." The Queen Consort left without replying. She sat alone in the adjoining room while aides passed at a careful distance. No one approached her. The silence hurt more than any rebuke, because it confirmed that her influence had already begun to shrink. The Prince of Wales learned of the confrontation through a documented briefing from the household secretary. His first response was firm. He wanted the Queen Consort excluded from every remaining planning meeting. The Princess of Wales stopped him. She warned that punishment would turn a constitutional correction into a personal war, and that the new reign could not begin by humiliating those it claimed to reconcile. She went to the king herself. She told him that his son's succession did not require his disappearance. It required his visible confidence in those who would follow him. The king finally admitted that watching his son prepare felt like seeing his own life converted into history while he was still living it. She answered that history would judge how he left power just as deeply as how he used it. The fallout came quickly. Coronation papers were placed under tighter controls. Every alteration required direct approval, and informal household channels were removed from the process entirely. The change protected the transition, but it also exposed how little trust remained. Then the eldest son overheard part of a family discussion. He later asked his father whether becoming king meant losing his grandfather. The Prince of Wales froze. His son's question revealed that the children were absorbing every silence, every closed door, every strained conversation. That evening, the Prince of Wales went to the king, not as heir, but as a son. He found the study empty. On the desk lay the unsigned abdication instrument, the legal document that would permanently end the king's reign. The empty chair left the future king alone with the full weight of succession, until the Princess of Wales found him standing there beside the unsigned document and gently forced him to confront what he truly feared. No advisor witnessed the moment that finally secured the coronation. There were no cameras, no red boxes, no constitutional experts. Only the Prince and Princess of Wales, standing together beside the document that would make them king and queen. He confessed that he could command a ceremony, but could not promise that the crown would leave their family untouched. She answered by placing the late queen's sealed letter between them and breaking its wax. The future king did not hide behind duty. He admitted that his greatest fear was not failing as king. It was becoming so consumed by the role that his children would grow up feeling the same emotional distance he remembered from his own childhood. The draft coronation oath, the formal promise a monarch makes to serve the country and uphold its laws, rested unopened beside him. Yet all he could think about was what that promise might cost at home. The Princess of Wales confessed that she feared the crown too. She knew the public would expect calm, even during exhaustion, grief, and private family strain. She worried that strength would be measured by how little pain she allowed others to see. Then she unfolded the late Queen's letter. The message was direct. It warned them never to confuse silence with strength, or duty with the absence of love. The monarchy, it said, survives only when the people wearing the crown remain recognizably human within their own family. The future king read the words twice. The Princess of Wales watched his expression shift, as the burden before them became a choice rather than a sentence. He removed the coronation oath from its folder and wrote a private promise beneath it. Their children would never be treated merely as future instruments of the institution. They would understand duty, but they would also know affection, honesty, and freedom from fear. The Princess of Wales agreed to stand beside him, not as decoration, but as an active partner shaping the values of the new reign. The king entered only after his son invited him. The Prince of Wales told him that the new monarchy would honor his service without pretending the transition was painless. The king listened. Then he sat before the abdication instrument, the legal document permanently surrendering the throne. He signed. He set down the pen and asked that history remember the decision as protection, not retreat. The Prince of Wales answered that it would. Father and son embraced briefly, ending the conflict that had threatened to poison the coronation before it even began. The Princess of Wales lifted the signed document but did not call for an aid. She allowed both men several silent moments to accept what had just happened. One reign had ended. Another had become inevitable. With the signature complete and the family finally united, the palace released the full coronation program, and the world responded with an image no private meeting could have predicted. By sunrise, the date had moved beyond palace walls and into the streets. Newspapers carried the same photograph, the future king and queen holding hands after their announcement, with the king visible behind them in the doorway. The image captured succession without hostility and sadness without defeat. But the strongest public reaction did not appear in print. It gathered outside Buckingham Palace, where 3 generations stood beneath one handwritten message. A child lifted a sign above the crowd that read, "Thank you. We are ready." Those words spread across every broadcast within minutes. They honored the departing monarch without rejecting the future. And that balance became the emotional center of the day. One major broadcaster described the announcement as a transition of service rather than a transfer born from crisis. A leading newspaper placed all 3 royals on its front page beneath the headline, "One crown, 2 reigns, no civil war." Suspicion began giving way to acceptance. The future king watched the crowd coverage with his eldest son beside him. The young heir said the sign seemed to honor both his grandfather and his father. The Prince of Wales looked away, visibly moved, because his son had understood in seconds what adults had struggled to express for weeks. The Princess of Wales received thousands of messages praising her as both a mother and a future queen. The response carried its own pressure, but it also showed that the public expected the new reign to feel more human, more open, and less distant. The king answered the final doubt through a recorded palace address. He declared that his confidence in the Prince and Princess of Wales was complete. The Queen Consort stood beside him but remained silent. Afterward, she met the Princess of Wales privately and apologized for attempting to alter the procession. The Princess of Wales accepted the apology, but made one boundary clear. Private fear could never again interfere with public duty. The Queen Consort agreed. The country had accepted the date. The king had released the crown. The family had survived its private struggle. And all that remained was the ceremony that would define what the new reign truly stood for. On June 2, 2027, the bells of Westminster Abbey announced more than the beginning of a reign. They marked the completion of a difficult promise between a father, a son, and the woman who had held their family together. The new king entered carrying the burden of expectation. The new queen walked beside him carrying the strength of quiet endurance. The former king arrived, not as a defeated sovereign, but as the man whose final act had protected the crown itself. Their shared entrance made the meaning of the day unmistakable. This would not be a solitary rise to power. It would be a partnership. The coronation, the sacred ceremony in which a monarch is formally crowned and publicly commits to serving the nation, placed the future of the monarchy upon both of them equally. The former king took his designated place without hesitation. He allowed the incoming couple to command the ceremony. The Queen Consort made no attempt to reclaim the influence she had once feared losing. Their restraint mattered, because one wrong gesture could have revived every rumor of bitterness the family had worked so hard to silence. The decisive moment came during the formal pledge. The former king stood, looked directly at his son, and promised loyalty to the new sovereign in a clear and steady voice. The words ended all remaining doubt. The new king briefly lowered his head before responding, acknowledging not only a former monarch, but a father whose sacrifice had made peaceful succession possible. The new queen received her crown moments later. Her first instinct was not triumph. She immediately looked toward her 3 children, reassuring them with her eyes before anything else. The eldest appeared overwhelmed by the scale of what had just happened. His father met his gaze and gave a calm, quiet nod, a reminder of the private promise that no child would ever become merely an instrument of the institution. The Princess Royal watched the former king after the crowns were placed and saw something finally leave his face. The tension was gone. She understood that her brother had not lost the monarchy in that moment. He had protected it by knowing when to release it. The queen consort approached the new queen after the service and took her hand. The gesture was simple, but its meaning was final. She accepted that her influence had changed, while the new queen made clear that a valued place within the family still remained. The new king's first recorded address honored his father's service, his wife's courage, and the trust of the public. He promised a monarchy built upon responsibility, openness, and compassion. Then he left the abbey beside his queen, not as a son who had defeated his father, but as a successor who had completed his father's work. The abdication was not the collapse of a reign. It was its most selfless expression. The coronation succeeded because this family chose reconciliation over rivalry, clarity over ambition, and service over the possession of power. The crown had passed. The conflict had ended. And a new reign began with the one victory no ceremony could ever manufacture, a family entering the future without abandoning one another. That's it for today at UK Dispatch. If this story moved you, hit the like button and share it with someone who needs to see it. Subscribe so you never miss what comes next, because this family's story is far from over.